Welcome to Client Heartbeat Monday, something to look forward to on a Monday. Today's Client Heartbeat Monday, we're actually going to be talking about how to get the best people within your MSP or IT services company. When I was in IT recruitment, I was there for 4 or 5 years, and it really allowed me to observe the complete spectrum of MSPs, from the most successful to ones that were maybe struggling a little bit more. And I was really able to see the difference in styles of hiring. And I'm kind of here today to just kind of talk to you about a couple of the issues or the particular areas that I think you can really add value to your MSP or IT company if you focus on them as part of your next hire. The first is, you really need to wait for the right person. Too often I think that MSPs, because they've just won a new project or they've just won a really large contract, they rush to get someone in through the door, and they're maybe a little bit hasty in that hiring process. Particularly as an example, I've seen situations where someone will put an ad up on Seek and, prioritize the candidates in an order and simply just take the most qualified candidate out of that list. I think that situation is fundamentally flawed, and even though it might get you someone to start off with, I think long term the solution isn't going to work for you if you're really aiming to be super successful. In the same vein, you have to explore all your options. You can't really just use job boards or just use recruiters or just use social media or just use internal recruiting strategies. You really have to do yourself justice and use all the channels, because ultimately it's people that are what make your business successful, and it's important that you make the right hire. But much like the yogi over here, the main message I'm trying to say to you is slow down, calm down, relax, and make sure you make the right hire. Don't hire someone hastily just because you need someone ASAP. The next point, which is something that was a massive stickler for me, is pay people what they're worth. So being on as a recruiter, you get to see both sides of the fence, and you kind of see over both sides of the fence, should I say. And so you can really start to understand the employee and employer mindsets a little bit more. And I can tell you, one of the things that irks candidates the most is where the company asks for a particular, asks you what your bottom floor price is, and then offers you, say, $2,500 less than that. When you're negotiating your phone contract, that's fantastic. Negotiate and get the best possible price you can. But please don't try that strategy when you're negotiating for people. You need to pay people what they feel that they're worth. And if, instead of quibbling over $2,500, let's say, build a performance structure that remunerates them appropriately if they're able to deliver and add more value to the business. At least give them some opportunity to do that. I can definitely tell you that, in particular situations where candidates have accepted those offers, they've gone on to, either create a negative or become a bad apple and overall rot the whole company culture. I would suggest that you need to really consider that when you're negotiating with candidates. It is really, really important from my point of view, and the most successful companies will pay you what you're worth, but they demand the results as well. Finally, we're talking about hiring and how to hire the best people. It's super important to not just consider technical skills. So generally speaking, the types of MSPs that I recruited for could really be bucketed into two areas. There was ones that focused on technical. If they could technically do the job, then they would get the job. And then there were ones that were considering more of the soft skills as well, the character traits, those other external factors. And maybe they didn't have as much of a focus on the technical because they believe the technical can be trained. I would actually suggest that those people, the ones where they focus more on the personality traits that they wanted and the intelligence and whatnot, those were the ones that ultimately were more successful in a broader sense. Sure, there were still, MSPs in that bucket that were definitely successful. However, overall, as an average, I would certainly say that the method proved more successful over time. I wanted to share with you something, it's slightly different, but I think it still applies. One of my favorite books is actually Winning by Jack Welch, and he actually is talking about leadership, and he talks about the 4 traits that you need, the 4 E's as they say. I still think that a certain element of that applies when you're hiring, regardless of even if you're hiring for a leadership position. I think that it still makes a significant difference, and if you base your hires on the 4 E's or a portion of the 4 E's, it'll take you a long way. The first is really just positive energy. So you want someone who, is positive, for want of a better word. You want someone, who's happy, who's bubbly. There's nothing worse, nothing will rot a company culture fast than, a team of negative Nellies. And if you haven't discovered that yet, you definitely will. The ability to energize others. Look, these 2 points here, the ability to energize others and edge, they're probably more leadership qualities. However, you could still look for them in the staff that you're bringing on. The ability to energize others is obviously that infectious nature whereby people, you could call it charisma, you can call it whatever you want, but that thing that other people feed off and get energy from. Edge is certainly is more of a competitive aspect, so they have a competitive mindset. And finally, execution, which I think is really important. Get examples of how they've executed in previous roles. They've got the job done. I think that's super important. There's actually one more thing as well. I'll just write it here. There's actually 4 E's and a P. P's for passion. You want someone who brings passion to their work, someone who's passionate about the organization, because those are the people that will enable you to go further with your company. And for me personally, I think that if you're not looking at these particular character traits, you're doing yourself an injustice when you're hiring when you're making your next hire. So there you have it. How to get the best people. I hope this was interesting for you. I hope you got some information out of it, and I hope to see you again next week.